Hello, friends. Chag Sameach. Happy Sukkot. This coming Saturday night, October 2nd, at 6 p.m., we will gather together outside on the patio to celebrate Simchat Torah, the end of the cycle of the fall holidays. We will bring our own food for dinner or order a dinner box from Tal's Patisserie on the website to celebrate this joyful holiday of connection to Torah. After we eat, we will unscroll the Torah out on the patio, look deeply into our sacred story, and share blessings. Then we will be led in dancing by Bruce Bierman, who's led our community in joyful dance for many years. Bruce is simply the most extraordinary dance teacher I have ever encountered. His instructions are minimal. He simply teaches by dancing, and his joy and delight in the dance are positively infectious. We will keep our masks on. We will distance and celebrate our connection to Torah. You know, Simchat Torah is one of my favorite Jewish holidays. When I was a boy growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, our Orthodox community fully embraced this celebration of connection to Torah. The dancing would start about 8 p.m., and we would rarely finish before 1 in the morning. Our sanctuary had wooden floors, and the dancing was filled with so much energy that if you were in the room, the floors would slightly move up and down, and you'd be dancing even if you weren't dancing. Being Orthodox, only men and boys participated, and the bodies would be flying all over the room. We danced way past exhaustion into a state of bliss that can hardly be described. When one dances and sings so hard for so long, one enters an altered state of consciousness. There is an ecstatic experience that is available only when one fully embodies prayer. It is a joy that can hardly be touched any other way. You know, I thought I might never again taste that peak experience on Simchat Torah until I lived in Jerusalem. The first year I was in Jerusalem, I decided to celebrate Simchat Torah with one of the many synagogues in the center of Jerusalem. I attended the Great Synagogue, adjacent to Heichel Shlomo, the former seat of the chief rabbinate of Israel. Today it houses the Jewish Heritage Center and the Museum of Jewish Art. When services ended around noon, all the synagogues in the center of the city gathered in Paris Square, and each community brought a couple of Torah scrolls. The dancing began in a large roundabout, and there were more than 1,000 people dancing. At a certain point, all of us started heading toward the old city. I didn't see anyone give a signal, but it was time. Now, many of the streets down towards the old city are filled with apartments that have sukkot built out on their balconies. It's so sweet. So all the way down to the old city, women were ululating in the otherworldly voices. I can't even do it. And we were showered with candy from the sukkot overhead. When we entered the old city through Jaffa Gate, it finally dawned on me where we were going. We made a beeline down the main street of the Muslim quarter and cut across through the Jewish quarter. When we emerged into the spacious courtyard, the huge parking lot was empty, It was a holiday, and from every direction, dancers, they were of course all men, converged carrying torahs from synagogues from all over Jerusalem. Reports in the newspaper the next day said that there were well over 100,000 people dancing in front of the Kotel, the Western Wall, the last vestige of the Second Temple that had been destroyed by the Romans in 70 of the Common Era. Now, somehow, without any break in the singing or dancing, 4 Torah scrolls were being held, and men and boys arranged themselves in 4 movable walls of humanity in a roughly square shape. So when the person carrying the Torah in the west would dance out, all the people in the east would dance the other way, backwards, away from them. And then the person holding the Torah would leap in the air and seemingly defying gravity. We would all wonder as he held on the Torah aloft in his hands, above his head, each hand on an Eitz Chaim, a wooden dowel which we call trees of life. So the mass of people would dance this way, and then it would open up in this way, and that way, and back and forth and back, without any prescribed order or signal. It just flowed. Dancing with all my energy, I thought, it just can't get any better than this. And then it did. Suddenly, the man holding the Torah in the direction I was dancing thrust the Torah into my hands, indicating that it was my turn to lead the thousands of men, tens of thousands of men behind us. I grasped the Torah in my hands and all of a sudden, I lifted it above my head and began to dance like I've never danced before or since. It was like the Torah was lifting me up. I leapt into the air like my predecessors had done before me. I flew across the square and somehow kept the Torah scroll safely above me. I felt like I was in a Marc Chagall painting. I twirled and spun. I leapt and sang at the top of my lungs, dancing into the middle of the square of the Western Wall, the Kotel looming above us, filled with an energy that was turbocharged by all of the men around me. After about 10 minutes, I don't know how much time actually transpired, but I didn't want to abuse this privilege of a lifetime. And so I thrust my Torah into the arms of another man who was as wide-eyed as I imagine I must have been when I received it. After about another hour of dancing and leaping, my clothes dripping from sweat like everyone else that afternoon, I stepped away from the frenetic energy of the dance and I made my way to the wall. I offered prayers of profound gratitude for the joy, for the dance, for the utter jubilation and the whirlwind of love for the Torah we all felt that special day. Over the years at Beth Chaim, I brought a little bit of that energy to our Simchat Torah celebration by doing the last dance with the Torah held aloft in a simulated, scaled-down version of my peak experience that day at the wall. I won't be doing it this year since my knees are still recovering from surgery, but I am grateful that my friend Bruce Bierman brings such joy and delight to our Simchat Torah celebration. Whether you are able to dance or not, I encourage you to come and be a part of this holiday of honoring the Torah with all of our joy. I hope to see you there. Stay safe and be well. Shalom uvracha, peace and blessings.